Hello, Jen here with some Christmas cards. I have loved sharing my Christmas cards process since Daisy and I started doing our Christmas cards series several years ago. It's just been a really fun thing that I like to do because I am not a card maker. I watch lots of card inspiration videos. I watch all the greats like Christina and Jennifer and Nicole and just, all those really great card makers. But I am not a card maker. I don't use my manual die cutting machine very often. In fact, I probably need a new one because mine is a grand caliber and just completely out of date. I don't really have all the right supplies, so I don't have like card bases and stuff. I kind of have to make all of that from scratch and envelopes. And yeah, I'm just not a card maker, and neither was Daisy. And so the two of us were talking about our love of Christina Werner's Christmas series that she does, and how funny it would be if we started kind of taking inspiration and scrap lifting her cards and trying to do them ourselves as quote unquote kind of like real life people, non card making but scrappy people. And so we turned it into a series and it was a ton of fun. And ever since then, I just have really grown to appreciate my type of card making, which is very much use the supplies that I have available to me. Maybe play with some different techniques or find something that is kind of a go-to and then just create and have fun and enjoy the process. So during my live last week for Wild Whisper, I decided to share that process with everybody with some of my, I guess you could call them hacks, or I like to call them like my cheater cards, because they're just really simple and easy techniques that anybody could do. And I kind of get things prepared. I use a lot of scraps and stuff like that. And then when Christmas time rolls around, if I'm not working on Christmas cards for YouTube and as a series, I just kind of have these go-to techniques and these go-to supplies that I can pull out and make some Christmas cards. They always look really pretty. Yes, they are handmade. They're not full of layers and, ink blending and all that really cool stuff that you see the pros do. They are definitely handmade by me, and you can tell. But I love them. They always turn out really nice. Every year I get a little better at the different techniques that I try, and I think you guys could do it too. So I wanted to share them with the live viewers. So I started a whole bunch of these, and then I'm finishing them here and sharing them with you guys. So essentially, the first technique that you saw me do there was just take some watercolor paper and just paint some strips of color. So I picked 4 colors that I really like, kind of in traditional colors, but with a slight modern twist. So instead of a really bright Christmassy red, I kind of went for more of a pinkish and a purple. And then instead of that really classic Christmas green, I kind of have a little bit more of a bluish and like a teal, I guess you could say. So just a little bit of modernization to the colors, kind of building on the trends of the year. So I can repeat these same card designs year after year, and they're always going to be a little bit different because of the new colors or whatever might be hot or inspiring for that particular year. So I just took those colors. I used the oxide ink at the top. I wanted to show you that you don't have to have watercolors. You could use your ink pads, you could use mists, whatever you want to make your swatches. They don't even have to be water soluble materials. So I like the way that the inks like distress inks and stuff blend, or watercolors blend, but it doesn't have to be those. It could be anything you want it to be. You're just going to swatch those colors. Then while that was drying, I went ahead and showed you that the kind of hot, trendy thing right now is dipping something into your watercolor or your ink, creating a circle, and then using some more of those watercolors to fill in the circle and kind of let the colors and shades blend and create baubles. I've been doing that for quite a while, and I do have another video from this year earlier in November where I showed you actually using toilet paper rolls to create the circles. In this case, during the live, I just wanted to fill up some time while this was drying. And so I pulled out some of the random things that I had around my workspace that could make those circles. And for me, essentially the circle, the whole kind of idea of why you might be doing that is because with your watercolors, wherever your page is wet, your color is going to run. So if you have something circular or whatever shape it is you might want to use, you can create your circle either by dipping it just in water, which is what I did first in that very first one, or by dipping it into the color and then making a circle. And then that way you can get a much nicer circle than if you were eyeballing it, unless you're a circle pro, which I am not. And you'll see that later on when I show you another technique. So it definitely gives you that more, like perfect circle, which somehow I always manage to screw up anyways, because as you can see here, they're not perfect circles. But it also gives your water and your color a bit of a contained space so it doesn't bleed out anywhere that isn't wet. So that was just a really super quick technique. And you can see here, I was able to make those baubles and I'm already making a card. So very, very quick. I love, love, love the way the colors run and blend. So you want to dip your brush into different shades of greens and reds or whatever colors it is you're using. I even have a little bit of gold in there. And then to finish that one card off, I simply just circled it and outlined it with some sketchy black marker to outline it, and added the strings to make them look like baubles. And that was it. Easy peasy, hand painted, beautiful card. So that's one technique you can do, just right onto some watercolor paper. The other thing I was telling everyone is I like to make these card fronts, but I don't always finish a card by putting it onto a card base that actually folds, because I'll just keep a whole bunch of these card fronts, and then as I need them, I can pop them onto the card base, or depending on what they look like, you can always leave them one-sided like this, and on the back you can maybe wrap some twine around it in a decorative way and add a little sticky glue dot to a gift card and pop that onto the back, and you have a nice little gift card carrier, I guess you could say, that you could give someone. You can use these as tags to put right onto a package or onto a present. So I just make these card fronts, and then they're always kind of there and ready to go. So then the other technique I showed you, once you have those swatches and they're all dry, you can take them and cut them up. So I cut a bunch into triangles, and then I even stamped on some of them with the an older stamp set that I have here from Wild Whisper, the Cozy Christmas stamp set, which is really pretty and has these fun kind of mistletoe branches, or something similar to that, like an ivy branch. And so I just stamped that, and now I have a really nice image onto my little Christmas trees. Here you can see I'm painting some more swatches. I had this leftover piece of paper where I was playing with blending some of the colors and just creating little dots. And so I thought, not to let this go to waste, I'm going to do some more swatches, because after I cut all of my trees out of those first 4 colors, I took a bunch of the leftovers and created some little presents. So I wanted to show you that, they're very simple shapes, triangles and rectangles, but you can also do anything else that you can envision. So if you wanted to maybe do them in really fun colors of like blues and purples and pinks. You could cut out circles and turn them into little snowmen. There's just so many things to do and so many different color combinations that you can put together, and stamping on them. I love the idea of stamping. Once you have your swatches dried, stamping straight onto the swatch before you cut it into your shapes. So when you cut them into rectangles, it looks like wrapping paper with images on the paper, but it also looks a lot more realistic because obviously your packages are going to have images falling off the sides where you've bent the paper. So I just really love that it gives this extra little detail. So I cut up all the trees into different sizes, and then you saw me put them all together on a card, kind of arrange them as a grouping of trees. I've done that before and showed it in videos where I've also added things like cardboard and vellum and different types of papers, different textures of paper, even a little bit of like foam, so it had some dimension. I cut up the sleeve of a Starbucks card so it had that corrugated back to it, and I have that showing. So you can play around with lots of textures, and in a second I'll show you my little container where I keep all that stuff. You can cut them into trees, but you can also do the same thing with packages and keep them as squares and rectangles and turn them into Christmas packages too. So lots and lots of fun there. On the packages, I use some gold paint to do little ribbon and bows. So that's really fun, but you could actually use real ribbon or twine and things like that if you wanted to add that kind of detail. I was trying to keep it really simple, really basic, really like fast go-to quick cards that you can pull together quickly. And then I wanted to show a different technique for creating baubles. And it's one that I like to do, especially if I'm going to be using some punches. You spray with your spray bottle right onto the paper. If you get close enough, you're not going to get too much extra splatter, and you're going to get tiny little pools of water. Then you pick up a little bit of color and you just touch your brush into that pool or puddle of water and watch the color kind of blend and move, and you can let them sit for a little bit, and as they dry you can touch them with more water and get different sort of concentrations and layers of color. They're lots of fun, but also you saw me at one point just dipping in, and when you start to realize your brush has a lot of color on it, you can always just soak up some of the water and create another circle, a hand circle. None of my circles were perfect, but I'm planning on punching those ones out with different sized circle punches. So that is another option too that's really, really fun. And you can create some really beautiful baubles. You could leave them in more kind of organic shapes too if you wanted and cut them out. That's a great thing to do sitting in front of the TV, pop on a Christmas movie, have some hot chocolate or a tea or a nice, Christmassy coffee with you, and just hand cut all of those circles out. You could turn them into other shaped baubles, ovals, and, more diamond shapes and stuff like that. Whatever works for you. It's just really fun to kind of have all these raw materials cut out and ready to go. So up at the top of the screen, in those 4 or 3 little squares, I guess, you can see that I've punched out some of those circles. They're ready to go as I'm showing you what I did with my little packages. So I did one card where I kind of grouped the presents all together in a bit of a cluster, and then just stamped it with that same stamp set that has the word Merry and the word Christmas independent, so you can kind of move them both around. And then I also pulled out the All Occasion stamp set, which has a really nice sized Merry Christmas. It's from Wild Whisper as well. Sorry, it's a brand new stamp too. But I really like the size of the sentiments because it works really well on the front of a card, but it also would be a nice size to do inside a card too. So that is definitely a stamp set worth looking into because it has all the different sentiments, happy birthday, happy Easter, that kind of stuff. It's just a really kind of good, versatile, all-in-one type stamp set. So I layered up some of those presents and used the little Merry Christmas, the 2 independent ones, right on the gifts. And then I added some sequins. Here you can see my little kind of jumble of gifts. I spilt a little bit of the gold paint that I was using. So I just took that card, the paper, the background, and smushed it into the gold. So that one has a little bit of gold smushing in the background. So again, just a fun little detail that you could do if you wanted, or you could completely leave out. It's however much detail you want to add. And then you can also see with my trees, that one there, I actually have a little bit of the foam, or it's like stuffing that I used. So it is in the shape of a tree, and I think that one might also have a cardboard tree in there. So just, it's kind of fun to have different layers and they add different dimension. And then I took some twine and wrapped that around to give it a little kind of finishing touch, and a few little dots of glue where I stuck some of that faux snow. So adding details on some of them to kind of show you how far you could go with them if you wanted. But then I kept a couple of them very, very simple, because I also think that the really clean white background with just those little pops of color from the packages and nothing else is really beautiful. And it definitely makes the colors pop and the gold pop. It just looks really, really pretty and very kind of Christmassy. The white almost is like white snow, and then you have these Christmas colors that just jump off of the page. So all of my cards this year are kind of on this plain white background, and I really love them. I'm super in love with them. So now I'm taking my dots and I'm just showing you how you could turn these into baubles as well. But you could see how easily I have 3 different sizes of circles here. I could easily turn these into cute little snowmen, or, other types of things. You could turn them into little faces and put elf hats on them. It's super versatile. Once you have those basic shapes cut out and just sitting there ready to go, there's so much you could add. So if you don't have a lot of time, you could do some quick and simple cards like the gift cards. But if you find yourself one day having, a couple extra minutes, you could go ahead and start adding more and more detail. So that's sort of where I was going with these, and kind of sharing that they're my cheater cards in the sense that they're really easy to prep and just always have these little bits and pieces on hand. And then what you do with them is kind of up to you with how much time you have and how much time you want to kind of take to add different details and turn them into something different. So even having the same supplies, I didn't create any 2 cards that were exactly the same, because I was able to just put them all together in different ways so that every card is unique. So for these circles, I popped them down, again, went around them with that sketchy kind of border with the black pen. I do really enjoy the way that the black also helps to just make the colors a little bit more vibrant. They stand out a little bit more. And then I have a gold pen, paint pen that I got from Dollar Tree, and so I'm just adding the little tops of my baubles and kind of the little like hook and a few little details onto the baubles with that gold. And then here, instead of going around the inside of the circle, I'm actually outlining the outside of the circle, which kind of helps to make them stand up a little bit, so you can tell that they aren't on the paper. There's a bit of dimension to them. And then same thing with the gold. I'm just going to go in and add my little topper and the little hook that you would have the string hanging from. But you could do this with paint and use some gold paint if that's what you had, or you could use like stickles or puffy paint, or you could just leave it off or use just your black marker and make the little outline with it. it doesn't have to be exactly what I have. The beauty of these cards is that you use the supplies that you have. So I thought for this one, it might be fun to actually add twine as your strings. And so I've got some of that natural fiber twine that I'm going to go ahead and use as my string. I'm using the Aleene's Tacky Glue because I think it does have a bit of a stronger hold when it comes to some of these more kind of fibrous materials. So, that is what I've gone ahead and done there. So I just kind of pieced that all together. I'm going to use my ink pads to hold it down so that it dries. It only takes a couple seconds. This glue dries really, really quickly. And then here again, I'm going to stamp that Merry Christmas. Isn't that the perfect size for a card sentiment? I just think it's perfect. And I love that these all kind of came together really, really well. So yeah, that's how quick it was. This is sped up, but it was still only, maybe a minute or so, and that twine was held down. So I just cut off the tops, and then I thought for this one, I could add just a few little sequins. I think I might have smudged some of the black that, like the way that the twine was, the fiber got some of the black and smudged it. So I figured I'd go ahead and put some sequins to cover up that smudge. I have to say that's probably the biggest downfall for me as a non-card maker, and just, my personality in general, where you can see I always have stuff just out on my desk. The downfall to white backgrounds for me is that I tend to touch them if I have ink on my hand, or I'll drip a little bit of paint or something, and so they don't always end up white. But in this case, I really worked hard to make sure that I maintained as much of that clean white background as possible. So here for one of these package ones, I decided to go ahead and add just a little bow with some white and gold twine to the very, very top, and then just do my black border around the outside. I kind of like, since I'm stamping in black, I kind of wanted to have some black somewhere else, and so that's a good place for me to bring it in. And here now you can see all of the different cards that I made. This is just a handful of them. I'm showing you many more of the cards I made on my Instagram feed, so please go and check that out. Definitely go and visit the Wild Whisper store to get that gorgeous stamp set, and use my discount code DTGen to save 10% off your purchase. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions, leave them for me down below. And until next time, happy scrapping. Bye.